It's time for Tycoons of Small Biz, spotlighting the true backbone of the American economy, the true tycoons of business in America, the owners, founders, and CEOs of small businesses. The show's hosts, Austin Peterson and Landon Mance, are registered representatives of Lincoln Financial Advisors Corporation, a broker-dealer member SIPC, and registered investment advisor. The views expressed by your hosts, Austin and Landon, are not necessarily the views of Lincoln Financial Advisors. Let's lean in as Austin and Landon connect with this week's Tycoons.
Good afternoon, Tycoons, and welcome to today's episode of Tycoons of Small Biz. I'm here, as always, Austin Peterson, with my co-host Landon Mance, who happens to be in studio this week, all the way from Las Vegas. And we're happy to have in studio as well Bobby Machado with Signa Marketing here in downtown Phoenix. They're a digital marketing company, and we'll let him tell us a little bit about what it is that they do. So, Bobby, thanks for being here with us today.
Oh, of course. No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on this episode, and kind of just to give you guys just a brief background on Signa and whatnot. We're a local digital marketing agency here in downtown Phoenix. We've been around for almost 6 years now. It started mainly just as a web shop, and then my expertise in the marketing aspect kind of took off more ever since. We've been just focusing on helping small businesses and brands expand their online presence and so forth.
Yeah, we're looking forward to talking to you a little bit about that and what you guys do specifically here locally in Phoenix and potentially nationwide. But before we jump into the business side of things, we usually like to have our guests tell a little bit about themselves personally. So, I don't know if you're married, if you have any kids, your family, just give us a little bit of background on your family life and how that has kind of led you to where you are today.
Awesome. Yeah, of course. So I was actually born in Denver, Colorado. And weird thing is I had not been back since I was 3 years old. And we just went back 2 weeks ago as a family. So that was really cool just to reconnect. And we even went to the home where I spent the first years of my life there and all that good stuff. So it was really neat. But for the majority of my life, I've lived out here in Phoenix, mainly in Buckeye, which is why I was always around like dirt bikes and horses and all that stuff, because you can't get in trouble in the city. So you're going to find things to do outside and stuff. My immediate family is all here. I have some family in Tucson, and then, of course, like my cousins, stuff like that in Colorado. So yeah, but for the majority of my life, yeah, definitely Arizona. I feel like a native at this point for sure. Cool.
Yeah, definitely a good time of year to visit Colorado as well. Get up into the high country a little bit, cooler weather.
Oh, it was beautiful. If anything, I think, well, I have a younger brother. I'm the oldest of three, so I have a younger brother and then a younger sister. And I think both Cesar and I, because Cesar was born in Littleton out there, we looked at each other and were like, why did we leave? Like, Colorado's so awesome. But the thing is that there's a lot of beauty to Arizona too. There's a lot you can do. And I was like, you know what? That airplane ride's only an hour and a half. That's not too bad. You can get some work done on the way there. Yeah. Well, as a guy who spent most of his life outside of Salt Lake City, Utah, I would say go there in February, shovel a couple of really big driveways, and then tell me you still want to live there. That's a good point. That's actually the main reason why my mom, once I was 4 years old, she told my dad, she's like, we're leaving because those blizzards just got too bad. And she's like, yeah, we need to chill out on this. Yeah. My family, makes mention specifically about, they call it the surface of the sun where we live and, all that, all those sorts of things. And my response is always, you don't shovel sunshine. That's a good response. That's true. Very true. Yeah. I love Utah and Colorado. I lived in Colorado for a little bit when I was in junior high school. My dad worked at Stapleton Airport there. They're great places to live. They're actually great places to visit as well. The outdoors. It's tough to find better states in our country that have more to offer from an outdoor standpoint. Yeah. But yeah, if I were to ever live in Colorado or Utah again, I would have to have a heated driveway, right? and they do actually make those, right? Yeah. You can put like a hot water heater system in the driveway so that it just melts the snow as soon as it lands on there. So. Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I did not know
Bobby,
that.
I got to ask, so before we move on from this topic.
Yeah.
Because you hear mixed things from people when they go back to their childhood home, and so I don't know if you went up and knocked on the door and said, hey, I used to live here. Can I, tour the house? But is that what you did?
We were about to be honest.
Oh, okay. So you just...
Yeah, because my parents, we actually got to go to the apartment where they started their life essentially together before I existed. And we went up to the apartment. There's a lady coming out, and they got to talking, and then she's like, "Oh my gosh, you guys lived here." And she's like, "You guys want to come in and check it out?" So our whole family's in there just checking out this apartment, and we're like, "Okay, maybe we should do that with the house too." But I was like, let's not push it.
Yeah. You should have. My older sister, we lived in the same house for a number of years growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple years ago, my sister went up and just knocked on the door. And at the time, so it's a married couple, man and a woman. And at the time, only the husband was home. So he was giving her a tour of the house, and his wife came home and apparently was not nearly as friendly as husband. And so, my sister said that when, she came in and she introduced herself right away. "Oh yeah, we grew up in this house," and she was not too excited to have her in there checking it out. So I was just curious what your experience was, but
she was like, "I need some context here."
Yeah, exactly. So,
oh man,
yeah. Some people think it's pretty weird, right? But yeah, my wife will never have that experience. We have taken our kids. So my kids are 20 and 17. We've taken our kids to see the first apartment that we lived in as a married couple, and a few things like that, which I think we thought was way cooler than our kids thought. They're like, "Oh, okay, that's cool," right? But they're 20 and 17, so nothing's really that cool anyway, right? But yeah, my wife will never have that experience. Her parents have lived in the same house since 1969, and they're in they're 91 and 86.
Man,
they'll likely pass on in that home, and so and my wife was born in 1974, so it's the only house she's ever known.
Oh wow,
yeah,
that's special right there. That's really cool.
Yeah, pretty cool deal. So you mentioned your brother Cesar.
Yeah.
And I know you guys do a little bit in business together as well. So tell us a little bit more about your relationship with him and what you guys do from a business standpoint together.
Yeah, absolutely. So Cesar, he's definitely an analytical mind for sure. He works at Honeywell as a test engineer. Him kind of being, doing that as the full gig and stuff like that has always been kind of his thing. I don't think he looked necessarily at entrepreneurship until one of our clients at the time, we had built them a e-commerce website and so forth. And the gentleman, he was closer to, I think he's 66 now or so. So he was at that point where it was like, you know what, I'm managing this business on my own, and I'm ready to pass it on. So we were presented a great opportunity, great deal. Between Signa and Sector 7, I was like, I can't do this on my own. Like, I need help. So I told my brother, I was like, would you want to go in on this deal and essentially kind of resurrect this company? Quick Job has been around for 37 years. It was built from door-to-door sales. Wow. So Mike McLean, the previous owner, he had scaled it with the whole team of 25 sales reps, door-to-door sales. Nowadays, of course, you're not going to do the door-to-door sales as much. And so when 2008 happened with the whole crash, he had to let go of the whole team. And at that point, the site was hardly doing any of the overall sales. So his sales plummeted. And for the last 9-10 years, it's been consistent with the loyal customer base, but there's been no active pushing of marketing or getting the message out there or anything like that. So the fact that it's been so steady, super loyal customer base, we said, you know what, this is a great deal. And being able to use the resources from Signa and stuff like that, we've been able to amp it up from that side. But yeah, so Cesar is great because he handles a lot of the operations, all the shipping, all that stuff like that, while I handle a lot of the messaging and the marketing side of things.
Oh, cool. So how long ago did you pull the trigger on that transaction?
That was January 2019.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was fun because it was headquartered in Las Vegas. And so, we had a nice rental from U-Haul and got like all the inventory that was there. Like, so, everything was boxes and stuff like that and brought it over. And ever since, we've been managing that together. And I think with Quick Job, more so in the last 3 months, is more looking at the retail opportunities. That's one thing that Quick Job was always direct to consumer. And so now we're looking at, how do we get to the mass quicker especially throughout these times. And to be honest, I mean, cleaning products, they're not sexy. That's a challenge. And so, yeah, from a retail aspect, that's where we've been putting a little bit more work into for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. We've talked about this a little bit on past shows where, a lot of these companies that people don't think of as sexy, right? So it's not building websites. It's not doing digital marketing. It's not any of these, tech boom type of jobs or businesses that are out there. But there are some really strong, steady businesses that are just mundane, everyday, Joe lunch bucket type of companies that guys and gals make tons and tons of money doing.
Yeah, no, that's true. And looking at even, how you mentioned, I mean, there's some of these industries are just enormous. I until QuickJob came around, I never dove into, why, Dove and companies that are, doing consumer products for, in that sense, are just, billion-dollar companies. I never understood revenue-wise why. And once I looked into it, I was like, okay, well, yeah, that makes sense because with QuickJob, even if, there's 330 million Americans, averaging, and if we had even 1% of the market, that's an enormous business. Yeah. Once I looked at that point, I was like, oh, okay, this makes much more sense. So, yeah, all right, cool. Maybe there's room there for us to squeeze in this market.
Yeah. Well, and we even had a guest maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago or so that one of his exits was a cleaning products company.
Oh, wow.
And he's now got a different, company that he's building and doing quite well with. But yeah, he had an exit with cleaning products. Corey Yates with Alpha and Omega Repair. He sold a cleaning products business, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago or so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of opportunity in that industry. I mean, I think even more so right now, cleaning products are probably, pretty hot right now. But yeah, and it's one of those things that's a necessity too. It's not something that's gonna necessarily go away unless you kind of pull the throttle off on marketing and stuff like that. But yeah, so we're really excited to keep pushing forward and see where the retail side of things takes us for sure. That's a new arena for me. So I had to do my homework and really understand, okay, well, what are buyers looking for? What are they considering? How much sales do you have to probably be at already for them to even look at you? Stuff like that. And so that's been fun. But I love kind of going into new territory and then kind of it's like a personal challenge really to kind of see like, okay, can I do this? Like and kind of take it from there. I think it's like the competitive side of me of just like competing with personally myself to see like, can I do it or can I not type of deal.
Yeah. Well, I think that internal drive is something that all entrepreneurs have to have.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you're not always going to have somebody that you can compete with directly other than yourself. And so having that internal drive and that internal, whatever it is that pushes you to get out of bed in the morning is really what makes the difference between a successful entrepreneur and one that doesn't quite make it.
Oh, that's such a great point. I was so about a month and a half ago, because I took a rest from hiking for the last month, but I was hiking Squaw Peak with a friend, and we were talking about work and all that good stuff like that. Because I guess a lot of my friends will say like, "Oh, do you get too stressed out?" They think the stress is they see it differently because it's just different perspectives. But I was trying to explain how I'm excited for Monday mornings because it's my chance to make more progress and all that good stuff with the team. It's funny because when you say that to some people, they'll be like, "Are you weird? You're crazy!" Like, or that doesn't make sense to me. But that is one big difference I definitely see is like if you love what you do, you're excited to start the week, and Sunday you're kind of already mentally ramping up in that sense.
Yeah, understood. So we talk about that not being a real sexy business, and since Landon's here in studio, let's try to sexy things up a little bit and talk about digital marketing a little bit. And what specifically got you interested in digital marketing back in the day?
I guess I'll give you guys a little bit long form for context, but because it's not like I ever was young and said, "Oh, I love marketing so much. This is what I'm going to do. This is my it wasn't from that angle. As a child, I was always of service. I really liked when I was 5th, 6th grade, I started doing landscaping routes, and I wanted money to be able to buy my whatever toy I wanted, a bike or whatever like that. Even if it was 5th, 6th grade, I probably was still buying some stuff in terms of toys. But doing that, I was built my routes in the neighborhoods. That drive kind of always just was always there. So even went throughout high school, I was still doing like odd jobs and stuff like that around neighborhoods or anything like that. And so what happened was I started to get into like apparel companies and apparel designs and stuff like that. So I would do some exploratory clothing lines and so forth. But to do those items, you have to have a website. You have to understand social media. You have to do all these things on the digital marketing side of things, which really exposed me to building websites. And just like that drive that was always in me, I said, okay, well, now that I know how to build websites, I should just go build websites and sell these. So that was junior year and senior year were the main years in high school that I was actually building sites. Weirdly enough, I kick myself in the butt now, but like sophomore year, I remember using Dreamweaver in class and wondering, what the heck are we doing? Like, I don't even know what this thing does, type of deal. And so it was just really weird that the next year I was learning HTML and stuff like that. So I think it was just completely like the interest level. In sophomore year, I was just completely, numb to it almost. From there, I was selling websites. It was a love-hate relationship because I was always by myself, and then always in Buckeye. I was never going out networking. I wasn't meeting other developers or anything like that. And so it was a love-hate relationship for about 4 or 5 years. And then I got into selling Google ads for a bit. And I was already familiar with Google advertising, but I didn't know the mechanics of it or anything like that. So once I got into selling that that sales job lasted like 3 months because it wasn't my thing, but it was great because it exposed me to Google ads and it also allowed me to be able to explain it really well. So from there, I got a job, my first real job at an agency as a paid media specialist, and that was the one where it was a team of three of us, and we essentially managed the paid media for almost 135 car dealerships across the U.S. So Midway Nissan, Peoria Nissan, a lot of those types of dealerships is what they were servicing. And so we're managing a little over $1 million a month in ad spend between three of us. And so for me, what allowed me to learn was seeing data at a high volume. Because when you see data at a high volume, you can learn much, much faster. It's really tough if you have a small business campaign and you're seeing the data come through, but sometimes it takes a little bit longer to make certain decisions. But at that volume, you can see data very quickly. The other cool thing is that you're seeing it all within one industry. So a lot of those behaviors, you start to see like that certain geographic locations behave differently, or certain different makes and models behave differently in terms of interest levels and so forth. So I was there for almost 2 years. And again, it's just the bug that's in you that you're like, I'm always going to probably build something for myself, type of deal. And so even though I was super grateful for the opportunity and working there and the experience too, that's when I pulled the trigger to move out from there and start Signa. And really, my goal with that was to be able to take all the experience I've seen from a high level, seeing a lot of data come through and the tactics that work for big companies in that sense, and bring it down more to the small business level. Just because, especially like Google ads, Bing ads, even Facebook and LinkedIn, it's just super complicated for someone to get in there if they've never touched the platform. If it's the first time, it's just overwhelming. There's a lot of moving pieces. And even though these platforms do a good job of trying to explain, how to set these campaigns up and stuff like that, there's a lot of tactics and just nuances to the craft itself that really only built over time with experience. And so that's the inspiration that really drove Signa, and why, since I already had this web development background, we were building websites, but it almost serves as like the first project that we ever do sometimes with a client, because we know that we have to make that website work for them to produce sales or leads. And so then that's where the PPC side of things comes into play and all that good stuff. But yeah, so if I had to kind of categorize with Signa, our three main services is paid media, SEO, and website development. So those are the three pretty much the core to Signa there.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I feel like with a lot of small business owners, I feel like there's still kind of a mystique, around digital marketing. You know what I mean? And I think that it's because you've already said it well. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts. It's confusing, especially if you're not a techie, which I am certainly not. So I think that, you just get confused, right? And sometimes when we get confused, we tend to shy away from a subject, a subject or a topic or a business that we don't really understand. So when you're helping a business, manage their quote unquote online presence, help us understand, like walk us through what's important. What do you need to focus on? Give us some tips and tricks for, managing somebody's online presence.
Absolutely. At first, I always like to start at a home base. So foundation is everything, because if you don't have, in foundation, I'm referring to your actual website, which is your storefront online, because you can market a message all day out there, but if it's not strategized and you don't have that foundation in place, if anything, you can essentially lose a lot of money in marketing. Because it's not going to resonate or produce a ROI at that point. So looking at the actual website itself and the website experience and the messaging, and messaging meaning like all the content that's on the site. Is the site easy to navigate? Is it clear to understand what the company is about and what they're offering right when they land on the homepage without having to scroll down the fold? That's why we have really just core elements that almost any website should really have on a homepage or on a service page, like an inner page or anything like that. There's a lot of foundational elements that need to be put in place. Now more so than ever, search engine optimization really needs to be baked into the actual strategy of the user experience of the site. So even the design of the site requires some SEO fluency to kind of integrate in there, because the content needs to be optimized for search engines. Search engines are grading your website's user experience. Are people sticking on the site? Are they taking action? All that good stuff. And so now more than ever, you actually do see a lot more integration between content marketing teams, SEO teams, and designers working together, which before wasn't ever really like that. Before it's get your website built. Okay, it's live. Okay, cool. SEO agency comes through, rips up some stuff, change some pages. And even at that point, you're like, well, this site actually changed about 25%. Why didn't we just do this all at once? Type of deal. And so the great thing is that you're actually seeing a lot of agencies partnering up too to be able to better serve their clients. You're seeing a lot of web shops partnering up with strategic partnerships with other digital agencies, so that the client can essentially win and have a site that's built to work. So once you have that actual foundation, then you can confidently say, hey, you know what? Now we can put some money behind it, which is the gasoline, to produce some leads or some sales. And at that point, it's much more secure of an investment. A way to kind of do it in a sketchy way is to build a site that's 50% there. It looks nice, but there's definitely some flaws in terms of the messaging or the clarity of it. And then you say, you know what? Let's just throw some money at it. That's definitely the way where small business owners tend to then get discouraged, because they know they just invested some money, they didn't get anything out of it, and then a lot of times it gets blamed on the platform itself or the algorithm or anything like that. But the one thing that I've always loved about digital marketing is that the playing field's always getting leveled consistently. There's always new, not just platforms, but new features to all these platforms. Google Ads will release a new ad extension that, in our case, we like to test it right away because we know that a lot of others may wait 5-6 months to test it. We like to rapid test these new features up front, but it's great because it even with us not knowing, we know that other people didn't know about it because it's a new feature. So it levels the playing field in that sense a lot. And then, with devices changing so much, even more so now too, where you have really just web apps and websites almost like merging in terms of behavior and interface and stuff like that. That's another thing it's leveling the playing field. Everyone has to kind of relearn these things and continue to self-educate. It doesn't matter what level you're at. You kind of always have to be self-educating in this industry for sure.
Yeah. So you set the stage perfectly for my next question. So you and I, we had a conversation off air, several weeks ago when we were talking about having you come on the show, and I had shared my experience with you, which was basically what you kind of referred to as the sketchy way, right? That was me. That was me.
Yeah.
So help us understand, help our listeners understand our tycoons. There's a lot of digital advertising marketing agencies out there, right? So, how do you sift through them and find the right fit for you and your business and what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, that's a great question. And if anything, with sketchiness, when I use that word, I totally get it too, because you're a business owner. You're like ready to get things going. You want to see the leads coming through. Like you got that ants and that energy. So I like totally get it. Like I don't. If anything, I don't blame any business owners for that energy. But it is. I mean, digital marketing is getting saturated for sure. There's a ton of agencies. The entry to the industry. I'll be careful with words, but like it could be really easy to get into, because as long as you learn this knowledge on Google, and then if you're good at sales, you could essentially get into it and just start selling and not having any experience. So that's a tough part, because a lot of people have been burned by that. And so when you're looking for a digital marketing agency, make sure that they do present case studies, that you essentially interview them a little bit more at depth for sure. More digital agencies are trying to make that easier, because that puts a lot of strain on the business owner to have to essentially interview a ton of agencies. That's time, and time is money type of deal. So the more that agencies up front can show, their case studies, whether it's even like a white paper form or anything like that. But either way, the actual homework has to definitely be done to finding the right agency that actually meets your exact needs. More specifically, even try to find agencies that specialize in a niche or in a particular service. That's drilling down even more, because, and this is funny because I was talking to a client about this too, is the fact that because the evolution of digital marketing is happening so fast, there's new platforms, and these platforms are actually getting more sophisticated. There's more that a person has to learn to really be proficient at it. So, I mean, I wouldn't really be surprised that you'd start having agencies that, I mean, they already exist too, that they only do Facebook advertising. That's it. They don't touch anything else. They won't do websites. They just do only Facebook advertising. And the reason why is because there's so much to learn just from Facebook alone, to then have the expertise to then accurately and professionally service the clients. So that's why I think for small business owners, if they're looking for something specific, and let's say for example, lead generation, focus on finding an agency that is focused only on lead generation. Or if they're big enough and they have a division that only does lead generation, then that's great. That's probably one of my highest recommendations there, because if you go with generalist agencies that may not have the specialization, it can work really well if you're a business that's looking for that. If you're looking for an agency that could do it all for you, and they have the teams in place and they can do it, then that's great. But sometimes there could be generalist agencies that they have not specialized yet or have any specialization internally. Unfortunately, sometimes the client can lose in that sense in terms of results, and then of course like the expense from the engagement and stuff like that. So I'd say make sure that for the small business owner to really do thorough homework. I mean, this is essentially an extension of your team. And you don't want to just hire anyone. It's the same as you're building your team. You don't want to just hire someone on the first interview. So, make sure that you do 2, 3, 4 interviews. I think, now it's getting even more. I kind of look at it almost like these big companies like Amazon, stuff like that, where you'll do the 6th interview and then you don't get a call back. like it's like really, really thorough, really in depth. I think I think it's getting to that point where more small business owners do have to look at it more from that point of view. Don't just go by the price sheet. Go by who's on the team, what's their expertise, all that good stuff like that. And a lot of times the outcome will be more positive at that point.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice in a lot of different arenas, right? I mean, there are so many groups out there that do so many different things, whether it's digital marketing or financial advice or, you name it. And a lot of these industries can have pretty low barriers to entry, like you mentioned. And so it's really hard without doing multiple interviews to know whether or not they truly know what it is that they're providing.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And I mean, if anything, a lot of times if we get a prospective client, I kind of a lot of times even encourage, hey, go interview 2-3 more so that you personally have context, so that you could feel like, when you go home at night, you made the best decision, at that point. I mean, it's all about their business, and the business is providing for their family. And so it's a big decision. It's not just, hey, I went to the store and picked this up type of deal.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about you, Landon, but I tell you what, when somebody talks about Dreamweaver and HTML in high school, it makes me feel like I'm 100 years old. It's like that was not even a topic of conversation when I was in high school, that's for sure. So this is a perfect time to take a quick word from our sponsor. We'll listen to that, and then we'll come back. We got some questions for you about what the future holds.
Awesome.
Whether you're an established local company or a brand new startup, you can count on GBS to be part of your family. We're not just any benefits consulting firm, we're GBS. We have nearly 30 years of experience in group benefits, a strong sense of purpose, and it shows. GBS, believe in something better. gbsbenefits.com.
All right, Tycoons, welcome back. We're here with Signa Marketing and Bobby Machado, talking a little bit about digital marketing today and kind of what the future holds, what the past looked like. And, I made that comment before the break about feeling 100 years old when you mentioned those things in high school. And just to give you some context to that, after I graduated high school is when a friend of mine started talking to me about buying stock in this little company called America Online. So that gives you an idea of just how old I am compared to somebody who kind of grew up in the digital marketing space.
And did you get in on that stock?
I did not. I was leaving the country for a couple of years, and I had $1,000, and I felt like I needed to leave that in a savings account to get ready to go back to school, buy clothes, buy books, all those sorts of things to get back into things. And I wish I would have, because, I looked at it afterwards and I shouldn't have done that. But if I'd taken that $1,000 and I had invested it in American Online with all the splits that they had early on, 2.5 years later, when I got married, that $1,000 investment would have been worth just shy of $400,000.
Oh, man.
So I should have never looked, because now I know exactly what it cost me to not invest at that point. But yeah, that's, I was out of high school before the internet was a thing. So it's a different world that you've grown up in, of course. But I'm fascinated by digital marketing because I have, like Landon, I've had kind of some, I would call them bad interactions with digital marketing agencies that are out there. We can do this, we can do that. And you spend money on, paid ads, and you do Facebook, and you do some LinkedIn, and you do some Instagram. And I even did Waze, ads at one point. So, there's all these different things that I've even looked at over the years. But so I'm fascinated by this. I know it's something that I feel I have a fairly good grasp on for people who do what I do for a living on a day-to-day basis. But there's so much more to it. And so it is important to find somebody who really knows what they're doing and, like you said, can specifically work in your niche marketplace. So that kind of leads me to my next question is, in your opinion, what's one industry that you're really intrigued by or interested in right now from a digital marketing standpoint?
For me personally, it's definitely the real estate industry. And the reason why is just because of inventory being so low, and then us, the whole world going through this pandemic and whatnot right now. So it's really interesting to me, because what we've always been really strong at is real estate. And so we've been actually watching this industry for a long time. We've always produced lead generation, specifically on the seller side of things, producing seller leads. And it's an interesting time because of the fact that the inventory is so low. A lot of people are, holding on to their homes. They're saying, hey, you know what, this thing is worth good penny right now. Some people don't want to move, or the real estate agent is able to not convince, but to kind of talk them through different options and kind of open up their eyes to different opportunities in that sense. And there's a lot of people in the consideration phase because of the market, the price values being so high. Which, man, when I went to Denver, I looked up my parents' house, and I was like, man, that thing was worth they bought it for $89,000 at the time, and it's worth over $500,000 right now. Just Colorado's just been booming, and when I looked at the whole neighborhood, I'm like, man, all these homes are like everything's in the 600s. So this whole neighborhood is, but that's happening a lot everywhere in the U.S. And so it's an interesting time for us seeing how many people are actually in the consideration phase, where they're not a hardcore, really good seller lead, but they're still filling out the home valuation form on a page, and they're curious. And of course you go into, everyone's different, what phase of life they're in, those types of decisions and stuff like that. But that's one that's really interesting for me. The other reason why it's really interesting for me is because of you see a lot of content generation being done by real estate agents, which is great. You have to almost at this point. But what I am seeing is that because it's tough right now to do video, like people I guess things are opening up now, but a lot of shows from real estate agents, they couldn't interview the local officials, or they couldn't interview the local business owner because the business was closed at that point or whatnot. And so in terms of doing it face-to-face on a video show. And so that's why I really started to get interested on real estate agents, seeing them start to do podcasts. I've seen that a ton now, if anything, of real estate agents producing their own podcasts, basically taking their video show that they were producing and just making an audio form of it. And the cool thing is about Zoom, I mean, if you want to start super basic, the point of entry is very low too, to be able to produce at least some decent content. Because you see the Zoom calls being recorded and done everywhere now too. So that's why I see a lot of opportunity, because like most real estate agents, it's not like you have a huge budget to throw into marketing, but you have something. And so you have to be kind of careful of where you spend your dollar. And for me personally, content generation is something that you never lose out, because it's an asset. Yeah. Once the audio is produced, it lives forever. Once you produce the video, it lives forever. And so for me, if I invest money in something like that I know lives forever, it's a really good investment in that sense. And then you can, of course, amplify it through advertising, but at least having that asset where you can do whatever you like. You can take that long form piece of content and chop it up into highlights and run it over, your content calendar for the next 2 months type of deal. So that's why I'm really interested in that market, just because last time I checked, at the end of 2019, it was almost 1.4 million real estate agents in the U.S. And so, I mean, it's a huge market, and there's a lot of competition. That's what makes it super, super tough, is there's a lot of competition. And so that's why, to me, I see content marketing as that way of your chance to at least be different in some way.
Yeah. Yeah, we had some real estate agents on a few weeks ago, and one of them, the broker that was on, Steve Trang, actually has his own podcast that he puts out for real estate, and I think it's done a lot of good things for him, for his business. He lives, or I shouldn't say he lives by it, but he stands behind what it's done for him and for his business, and he's been at it for 20 plus years, mm-hmm. and he sees the value in it. And you're right that it provides this content that can be split up and used. And we do some of the same stuff with our show here, where we'll take these sound bites and we'll put them out later. And some of them are evergreen, right? I mean, you can recycle them. You can use them again a year later, 2 years later. It doesn't really matter. Mm-hmm. Nobody saw the content. And as long as the content itself is still relevant,
yep.
You're right. It's an asset. It's something that you can continue to use for a lot of time to come.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And in content generation, I mean, sometimes can get, depending on your production value, if you hire a content marketing agency, it can scale up or down. You can go full production and make a hefty investment, but there's always options in ways to be able to produce content in a way that's still within budget and, not a huge strain. for small business owners, because I think a lot of small business owners tend to sometimes not go into that direction because they have a fear of budgeting or the work involved or anything like that. But it's actually, it can be easier than what's probably anticipated in lots of cases.
Yeah, I think the cost to entry is a lot less than a lot of people think, right? I mean, I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and I think they're actually going to be the CEO or the chairman of the nonprofit's going to be on in a few weeks, I think. But they asked us to record just a quick 30-second video as to why this particular nonprofit is important to us, right? Mm-hmm. And so I took the video at home, and I do a fair amount of video marketing with my business as well, and I'm comfortable in front of a camera. I'm good with all that. Well, they played this on a show, or not on a show, but on a meeting that we did the other day, and they played back my video, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, the sound quality is good, my message was fine, but the quality of that video is terrible. So what did I do? The next day I ordered a new webcam on Amazon, and I only paid like $30 for it, but it's 1080p or 4K or whatever, and it's a much higher quality video than I had before. And then same thing, I ordered a new microphone to give me better sound quality because I've been using my Beats headphones for Zoom calls, and there's a little bit of a delay because of the Bluetooth. So and that microphone was like $20 or something. And it was highly rated on Amazon. So the reality is you can really put all of this together on a pretty shoestring budget if you're really committed to it and you understand the value.
Oh, that's a great point. And I think sometimes even psychologically, I don't know why, but I think it's just a human thing, depending the person and stuff like that, where they won't make those that purchase. But you could easily spend $15 at Taco Bell. So it's like the way
that's a lot of food at Taco Bell.
For me, oh man, I spent $15 at Taco Bell.
First of all, that's impressive. But go on.
But I was telling my brother the other day too. I'm like, man, dude, inflation is definitely happening. I see it at all these places. But the way I look at it is like, look, it's your business. This thing is like your life. This is how I view it personally. So to make that investment of $20 or even a couple $100 on stuff that's going to have longevity is like, done. Like, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. I love that. I actually, I wish I could tell you guys where I heard it, because I just heard it in the last couple of days, but it was a small business guru, guy. And he was talking about that. And, it was in a book that I was reading. He was saying, he helps business owners look at investing their business dollars, not looking at it as an expense, right? It's not a line item. It is an investment that you are deliberately making back into your business, because you could take that money out of the business and put it in your own pocket, but you are deliberately and consciously making that decision to invest that money back into your business with an ROI expectation.
Yep. Which
leads right into my next question. So you mentioned something about a budget. So this is kind of a two-part question. So with a lot of buzzwords in today's business and marketing world, people say paid media. So first of all, help us understand exactly what that means, what that entails. And then if you can, maybe segue that into a small business that's looking to engage your agency. What can they expect to invest with you guys on, let's say, a monthly budget, and how long should they really commit to working with you before they can start seeing some results?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the word paid media for us is essentially an umbrella term. Within it, of course, is Facebook ads, within, Instagram ads in there too, LinkedIn advertising, Google ads being ads, and then within Google, you have YouTube advertising. Those are the 5 networks that really describe paid media for us, even though there's tons of other platforms. I mean, TikTok is one that they've opened it up for advertising and stuff like that too. So, but for us, it's those 5 main platforms. For a small business, let's say more so like a service-based company that's looking for lead generation. Typically for a small business, they're going to spend between $2,000 to $3,000 if they would kind of want to be a little bit heavier per month with ad spend and everything. that's basically pretty much the norm right now is that price range right now for businesses that are, if anything, probably closer to 4 or 5 million a year in revenue. They're usually spending $5-6 grand a month around there in paid media. And the thing to look at paid media, I mean, it's a commodity. It's like it's water in terms of like you can turn it on, turn it off. If you want traffic that from a specific keyword or traffic from a specific interest in a specific geographic location, you can launch it right away and be able to attain that traffic. What's important is finding the right partner to make sure that not about just attaining the traffic, but that the actual strategy in terms of how you're converting that traffic is in place, because that's where things get ruined. Essentially, if you don't have the home base that's actually going to convert that traffic, then it's a wash at that point. I'm missing a second part to your question that it went.
I said so. If a small business engages you, you've laid out the services, they're on board, and they say, how much you've kind of laid out what price range they can expect, but how long do they typically need to be committed to start seeing results?
Definitely, yeah. So especially with say if it's like a new industry, usually 90 days is a testing phase to really get into the point where you're actually by the end of 90 days, leads are coming through, and not only the leads coming through, but the strategy is saying, okay, cool, we know what's working, what's working and what's not, type of deal. Really, the 90-day mark is pretty the extent of it. A lot of times it's sooner than that, and especially with industries that we're really familiar with, that's actually more turnkey, if anything, because we know the nuances of the industry and the strategy to execute at that point. So industries, for example, like real estate, those are really we could start generating leads type of thing tomorrow, type of thing. But the only reason why is because we've been involved in that industry so much, so we know what works and what doesn't, and we've seen that whether there's market swings or even a pandemic, there's still a ton of search interest for people that are considering selling their home. So yeah, but I think definitely on average, especially for new industries that are emerging or that there's that is kind of tough. I mean, like the CBD market, it's a little bit more open up now, but there's still, you got to be careful in some ways. Those typically still 60 to 90 days is pretty average to start generating results, and then from there, by the end of 90 days, it's saying like, okay, cool, the foundation's done. Now let's scale this. And it depends on the business goals. Does it need to be scaled? How many leads do they actually need for their sales team to close? What's their closing rate? Kind of just doing like the reverse engineer, just backwards math, to make sure that the marketing efforts are actually mapped out to the business goals at that point.
Yeah. So I've got kind of the same question, but there's paid media and then there's search engine optimization, right? And in my mind, the two kind of work together, but they are truly separate. So maybe explain a little bit more of what search engine optimization is and how does somebody dial that in for their own business? Yeah,
that's a great question. They do work together, especially, I mean, there's users that will never click on a paid ad on search on a search network. Like, well, they'll conduct a search query and they'll never click an ad. They'll always just go to organic. And then you have other people that are okay with it and they'll click on the ads. And so the reason why I mentioned that is because you essentially have two groups of people. If you want to dominate a market 100%, then you kind of have to have both placements, both paid and the organic side of things, if you wanted 100% of it. And of course, the great thing of organic is once you do attain those rankings and you continue to maintain them, that is, I don't like to say it's free traffic because you still had to hire someone to get there. so it was still an expense. But the thing is that organic traffic for certain industries does even tend to convert at a higher rate. That's just a better quality traffic. So, so those two definitely work together. In terms of search engine optimization, kind of just to lay out, just I guess some context, there's on-site optimization and then off-site SEO for SEO as well. On-site is actually ties into what we were talking about earlier. When you're building your website, making sure that the actual foundation of the site's in place, and on-site SEO is factored into that. So basically, this is how I view it, is when someone lands on your website, they should be able to clearly understand what you guys offer, and some of the benefits and a way to take action.
Maybe in the top half of the page.
In the top. Yeah. Usually this is done by a headline, a subline, like maybe a little paragraph that's maybe even just one sentence, 2 sentences. Sometimes you'll see some bullet points, and then you'll see a visual, like whether it's imagery or, which I highly recommend, is like even like a video. And underneath those bullet points, sometimes there's a button that's a call to actions, to be able to take action. Then from there, if that's not sufficient enough for the user to take action, they scroll down and strategically, then that's when you go into social proof, whether it's testimonials, more information on the actual company itself, or the service line. If you want to guide people, maybe you have a suite of services or a suite of products that you want to guide them towards. That's where that customer journey starts to expand there. But the reason why I bring all that up is because like without having on-site SEO, you could do all the off-site you want. It's not going to be sustainable rankings. Maybe you can have a website that's, let's say, 50% there, and you do a ton of off-site SEO. Maybe you can get a ranking for a little bit, but at some point, Google's always continuously grading your site. So at some point, they can grade it again and say, you know what? Yeah, we made a mistake, and then de-rank, like you lower your rankings. So that's why it's really crucial just to get the on-site done. This even means the site, how it's organized, the pages, the main navigation, the schema that's in the background. Because basically, the search engine's trying to think almost like a human, in a sense. It's trying to say, I want the best results for my search query. How do I get that type of deal? And the search engines are really just mapping out to what a user actually needs. And that's what Google's goal is to provide the best search engine results possible to their end user. So having an on-site is the first thing. Once you have the on-site, say you're a new business, you essentially have no authority. So for example, I like to use this analogy is, so right now, not the whole world doesn't know me. But if I went on Oprah, I would have, my life would probably change a little bit tomorrow. Like it'd probably be a little bit different. But the reason why is because of her authority has trickled down to me in some way. There's still some dilution there, but it's trickled to me in some way. And so that's how I describe offsite SEO, is you have your website, and the whole objective of offsite SEO is to essentially attain external backlinks, so links from other high authority websites to link back to yours. We don't want to make these sites, these links, anything. They should be relevant. They should be relevant to your industry, your service, or your product in some way, because that's how Google starts to really understand not only who you are, but who you're affiliated with. And that's how you start to increase your authority. As you increase your authority, that's where your rankings start to show up. Because now you're saying, with your on-site, you're making claims about something, but now you have the actual authority from your off-site that's validating your claims. And that's how you start to get rankings, not that just appear, but they're also sustainable. That's the big thing there. For local businesses, Google My Business, that profile, even though it may look so basic, that's like half of your SEO right there that a lot of local businesses sometimes miss out on, because it's underestimated of how impactful their Google My Business profile really is. And so that's why we preach, always having a process or a system in place to continuously gather reviews, because those reviews are your social proof, and Google is actually looking at reviews as well, your social proof across the web, as an authority point. That's a point of authority. So I always explain it as far as like, just make sure that your foundation's put in place, then start building all your authority offsite. That way you'll actually attain rankings that are sustainable and hold longevity at that point.
Yeah. So I want to go back a little bit. You talk about, Google dropping your rankings, right? So they'll rank you somewhere and then they say, oh no, I made a mistake, right? Mm-hmm. So one of the buzzwords that I hear all the time is they change the algorithms. Yeah. Right? So help us understand what that means and why that affects, your SEO and your rankings.
For sure. So, algorithms are changing. Maybe even a ton of times, even just during this conversation type of deal. It's so fast, and it's becoming even faster and faster with machine learning that's implemented and all that stuff. So that's why I really preach of like just do the right thing and do white hat SEO. Do the right thing and always be focused on the user standpoint in terms of their experience. If you're doing it that way, you're always mapped out to what Google looks for in their actual algorithms. If the algorithm changed and you lost rankings, is because they did grade you at a lower point. They said, yeah, if anything, you don't have enough social proof, you don't have enough authority. Or also, one thing that is forgotten a lot is that all the competitors are doing the same. So a local business that is active with their local SEO efforts, sometimes they lose sight that all their other competitors are doing the same thing as them. They're trying to get, and there's only 10 spots on the first page, and only the top 5 are actually getting high click-throughs. Anyways, so that's why SEO really never ends. SEO is a continuous thing, just like paid media. But the reason why SEO is continuous is because your competitors are always looking to take your position. So they're always looking to build their backlink profiles bigger and with more authority. And if it gets to the point where they built more authority than you, then yeah, Google will have to lower your rankings and give them the spot. But so it's free range for businesses to put in the effort or to not. But that's why from a local SEO standpoint, it's important to always continue to nurture your backlink profile. Like your on-site SEO, once you've done it once, you really don't have to tinker with it, especially when if you did it good and right with the site build, there's no reason why to go back and change title tags or meta descriptions unless you have data proving of why you need to, or maybe you added a new page that needs to be optimized. But once on-site's done, you can dive into backlinking and make sure that backlink profile is always really healthy and carries a lot of high authority, relevant websites.
So basically what you're saying is that Google knows and tracks every single piece of data.
Of course.
And if they don't like what they see, they knock us down in the rankings, essentially, right?
Yeah. But it's always because it's focused on the user. Like, meaning Google doesn't want to recommend you a garage door repair company that gives, not so good service. They want to give you like the best. And so for a search engine to be able to evaluate that, they have to look at all these factors. There's over 200 factors they have to look into. They have to look at the authority of the site. They have to look at the reviews. They have to see, okay, are these reviews only from Google or do they have them on Yelp and Facebook too? Stuff like that. And they'll even look at the frequency of the reviews. Did this guy get reviews like 100 in one day, or is it 100 over the course of 3 years because they're actually real? So those are the things that they're looking at. But yes, from my point of view, that's how we always tackle SEO, is really what's good for the user, because that's what Google maps out to in terms of being able to produce the best search results possible for the end user's query.
Yeah.
They're not just guessing. I mean, there's a reason that you've got 4 Just for Men ads on the side of your screen at all times, Landon. Well, on that note, Bobby, we really appreciated having you on the program today. There's been some great insights that you've provided to us on the show today. I've learned some things, and I've been trying to dial this in for my own business for quite some time. And so I appreciate the interactions. But just real quick, tell us where our listeners can find you online, or however you'd like to share your information.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I'm having a lot of fun with is our show at Signa called Blueprint. We launched it a little over a year ago. This past month, September, that COVID stuff kicked me out for 2 weeks. So it was such a bummer because we were on schedule, doing this more repeatedly and being able to answer questions quicker. But yeah, we shoot it. It's a weekly show. So I'm going to, this weekend, we're going to start it up again. And it's a show where I just candidly answer questions that have to do with digital marketing. So if any of the listeners do have questions that are really specific to their exact scenario, all they have to do is go to our website, signamarketing.com. They can submit it as a contact form, Or honestly, you can go on all of our social media platforms. Everything is at Signa Marketing. You can direct message us on Facebook or Instagram. And a lot of times we even have posts that ask for more questions and stuff. And we just ask that people place them as comments. And then we just curate those questions and answer them on the next episode. But yeah, that's the best way, and that's the funnest way, especially for us to be able to continue to provide value.
Very cool. Thanks again for being here. And we look forward to staying in touch over the months to come.
Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Bobby. That was great.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Tycoons of Small Biz, proudly hosted by Austin Peterson and Landon Mance. Austin and Landon are comprehensive financial planning professionals specializing in financial, estate, and succession planning for small business owners. Austin and Landon have offices in Scottsdale, Arizona, and Las Vegas, Nevada, and represent clients in 14 states throughout the country. Join Austin, Landon, and the featured Tycoons live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. right here on Business RadioX and your favorite